So in this video, I'm taking a look at the Lenovo Thinkpad L570. It is pure business 15-inch laptop based on a dual-core platform. Couple of things I want to mention about the device at the head of this video. We'll take a look around the ports and around the device, and then we'll deep dive into some of the scores and some of the performance characteristics of, for example, the screen and the battery life. Three things I want to mention first though. Number one, the display isn't the brightest in the pack. This is though a business laptop, and you're not expecting 400 nits out of a device that's going to be used indoors most of the time. Second point is, although this is a ThinkPad with a wonderful keyboard and touchpad, it hasn't got a backlight on the keyboard. So that's something you'll have to bear in mind. Third thing I'll mention before we go into a look around the device is that it scored an excellent 87% in our notebookcheck.net full review. The link's underneath in the video show notes, so if you want to go to the full review, check that out. But first, let's take a look around the Lenovo Thinkpad L570. So that was a look around the L570. As you can see, there's a big selection of ports on both sides and on the back, and you've got that access panel underneath. I'm going to go back into the access panel later in the video, but first let's talk about the keyboard and the screen. Keyboard is excellent. It's a ThinkPad keyboard, but it hasn't got that backlight, as I mentioned before. Separate numeric keypad, good touchpad, got the separate mouse buttons for the touch pointer as well, so you've got the best of both worlds. No mechanical mouse pointer buttons on the touchpad itself at the bottom if you're using the touchpad, but there are those buttons on the top. It's a fairly plain looking device. It's not ultrabook style in terms of its thickness, and that DVD read writer gives you a kind of a hint that it's really aimed at a whole wide range of usage. There's also that VGA port on the side. We haven't got USB-C, and there's a docking port on the back. So if you add that together with the fact that you've got some decent upgrade capability inside this and pretty good performance overall, including the fact that it doesn't heat up, including the fact that it doesn't really clock down under load, okay, under our full load test, which you won't get in normal day-to-day usage. We did get it to downclock. But if you run that Cinebench test, as we did, I think about 50 times, you'll see that it didn't really vary, and that's a good sign that this is a fairly well-balanced device. Fairly heavy at 2.4 kilos, but let's look at the back side of this now and have a look at that access port. After undoing just 3 screws, you can get that fairly large access panel off, and you'll see inside that there's quite a bit you can actually play with here. Now, the most important thing here is this SATA Express slot. So although they've got an NVMe M2 storage device in there, it's actually mounted in a SATA adapter. Now that is a SATA Express adapter which uses 2 PCIe 3.0 channels to give you some really good performance. So you've got some nice options there. You can put in a 2.5-inch SATA drive if you want. Up here you've also got a slot free mainly for an LTE module, and you'll notice that the antenna cables and the antennas are already built in, so you can upgrade this yourself with LTE. One slot free on the memory, so you can drop a second card in there to activate the dual channel mode. Also want to mention up there you can actually drop in another SSD if you want to. The removable battery is a 48 watt hour battery, and we'll take a look at some of the battery performance test results later in this video. One thing I will say about the casing here is that it does feel a little bit cheap. It feels like classic ABS plastic, and there's a little bit of play around the device as well. So it's not the highest end in terms of rugged builds. That screen is not the best we've seen. It's an IPS panel, it's matte as well, good viewing angles. Color range is not that high, the sRGB values weren't that high, the contrast isn't that high, and the brightness at 273 is okay, but it could be better at over 300 nits. You'll find a lot more information about the screen characteristics in our full review. One thing I can highlight is that we didn't find any PWM used to adjust the brightness. So for those of you that are sensitive to pulse width modulation method of brightness adjustment, that's not detected in our tests. A quick word on the performance levels here. Great SSD performance on this. PC Mark score is quite high. CPU is up there in the high end of the range for these dual core Kaby Lake processors. On the graphics, it is 620 integrated graphics from Intel, so you won't be playing any games, but it'll be certainly enough for your day-to-day office usage. One thing I really noticed out of the box, this is a really quiet laptop. The fan has been off all the time during the testing. Even under our load test, we only saw 33 dBm measured at 1 meter in terms of noise, which is a really excellent score. So this is a very quiet device. It's also a very cool device, some buildup of heat here, but not a lot, certainly below 40, so you won't really notice any heat buildup during extended periods of usage. This has got the same 48 watt hour battery as the L570 from last year, but we're getting much better battery performance out of this. Over 9 hours on Wi-Fi means that you'll get a full day's use out of it without having to charge it. And if you buy a second battery, you'll be able to easily swap that out and you'll get a good weekend's conference away without having to even bother about taking your mains charger. The version we have here is from Campus Point. It came without an operating system. We've run it with Windows 10 here, but we've also tested Ubuntu as well, and that was a quick and easy install. One thing I will note, with the Kaby Lake processors, Windows 10 is pretty much your only option. Windows 7 is possible to install, but there isn't any Intel driver for the graphics that supports Kaby Lake now. So that is a problem. If you want to go Windows 7, this is not a device you want to be using Windows 7 with. It's a Windows 10 build in terms of hardware, although, as I said, we've tried Ubuntu on it and that worked okay. So just to summarize for you, that screen is a little bit weak, or let's just say a little bit average in terms of its performance. It has a nice IPS matte display though, and if you're not into photo editing or video editing, that's going to be absolutely perfect for day-to-day usage. No backlit on the keys, no backlight on the keys, sorry, and there's no USB-C port with Thunderbolt if that's what you were thinking of. But you've got the PCI Express port on the side there, and you've got a whole host of, well, 4 USB 3 connectors, so there's plenty of options there for connectivity. So the Lenovo Thinkpad 570 is a good all-round business laptop. It came at just under €1,000 for the no operating system version we got here. Think about the upgrade paths that are available. Think about the excellent NVMe SSD, 1.5 gigabytes transfer speed maximum out of that. So that is a really nice build. Upgrade capability, Ubuntu capability, a good set of ports for all your standard peripherals. You might want to think about the backlight for the keyboard, but apart from that, it's an excellent device, and it scored 87% from us. Go and check out the full review at notebookcheck.net for more details and a big deep dive down into more tests and more test results, performance results, and more comments on the build, the fit, the fitting, and the upgrade, and the Ubuntu experience with this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next Notebook Check Tech Review.